your enemies are essentially all the same. They come at you. They come at you. They come at you. You know, on Mad Max. Okay, people, this is Galacticus X. I'd like to. I just saw a video by Thompson, and talking about open world games. Essentially, it was a response to Industrial Gamer, who went on a little rant over all the fluff and filler, the unnecessary content that plagues modern open world games, and in some aspects he is right. He's very strong about it. He says he absolutely hates this content that is irrelevant to the main quest. It doesn't offer much in terms of accomplishing the main objective of the game. I had started writing down some comments on Dane's video, the comment section, and then I decided to articulate those and to make a video out of those, because I think this is a vast subject for gamers. The content that is incorporated in modern open world games. It's as vast a subject, as vast as the worlds themselves, the worlds that the developers try to flesh out and to present. There's so much content there, and the ultimate goal is to construct a world that hopefully the gamer will be immersed into, suspend his sense of disbelief, and actually feel for a fleeting moment that he is actually part of this world. So there are so many aspects you can approach these games from, and it is always very interesting to see other people's views on games that I have personally played and remembered so fondly of. I think it's an increasing trend that open world games include so much fluff and filler, and an endless amount of collectibles and side quests that are there just to artificially prolong the time you spend playing. Then again, there are more subtle things in those games that some people can catch and others don't. They just walk by past them and don't pay any attention because they're just interested. They are interested in the end game, the main quest, and then they are not very interested in all these peripheral details of the game. So there are subtle things in games depending that some people can catch and others don't, depending on their preferences, and but also their perception. Okay, to give you an example, in Mad Max, the game of which I did, the game I did a short um, let's play yesterday. In Mad Max, and other post-apocalyptic games like the Fallout series. No matter how well you do and how many people you help in the game, that is, if you decide to play the merciful and the hero of the game, because in Fallout you can also assume the role of the villain. Um, so no matter how well you do and how many people you help, ultimately you can't save the world. You cannot save the world. No matter how many people you give water to in Mad Max, there are always more coming back, and you cannot escape doom. The whole life in the wasteland is so unbelievably miserable compared to our everyday lives, the modern life, the real life that we live outside the games. In the game, you eat lizards, you eat maggots, and in the best case, you can eat some dog food, which is like the plate du jour, the delicacy of this world, dog food. Everything is in shambles and ruins. You come across innocent people who have just been murdered a few minutes ago, and you see that they are being robbed or even cannibalized by gangs. It's a nightmare. Okay, and so there's this aspect of the game, and then um, you have these historic relics which really don't serve any any practical purpose. They're not like the scraps that are uh, essentially the credits of the game, which you can use to buy augments, to buy to build up your car, or to um, get more equipment and stuff. Uh, they're just there. There are faded photos of or other items of long gone past that often tell a story that makes you even more emotionally involved. That is, if you take a moment to read what's on these postcards. Many of them, they have handwriting, and they have some small note which reveals a story behind those objects. So some of them are really disturbing, and they make you feel really uncomfortable. Like, for instance, at some place you find a note that a girl left behind before falling off of a cliff because she had been raped, and she just couldn't stand living with that shame and this torment. Um, and she also lived with a constant fear of this thing will be happening to her again and again. This will be her reality. And so she decided to end her own life. Um, so these clues that you find and you put together in your mind, these clues of the past that you collect and you make a puzzle out of them. You make a puzzle of events. You complete this puzzle of events in your mind of the world as it were before, and what happened to the people that were ironically saved from the judgment day, only to suffer the horrors of the new desert world. The same feelings of desperation you feel in other post-apocalyptic games like Fallout. They really um, uh, succeed in drawing you in emotionally and detract you from maybe some other less successful mechanics of the game and some um, limitations of the gameplay or of the some bugs of the game, some clipping errors or some some other bugs that reduce this um, sense of immersion into the world of the game, the world that the developers try to make. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've spent about 45 hours in Mad Max, and I have um, I have unlocked, if you can call it like that. I eliminated the threat in about half of the map that is given to you, which is huge, but you can traverse this map in a few minutes. It's like um, the scale of these worlds is really enormous compared to previous generation games. But it's strange because at the same time, it seems that the, the more these worlds are getting expanded, the harder it is for developers to incorporate really meaningful and let's say important stuff that you can do. And a lot of times this feeling that you're traveling throughout a world that on the surface seems alive and vibrant, but there's not much you can do. This is a constant feeling. In Mad Max, um, this is it feels more natural because it's supposed to be an endless desert. You know, you can't expect to find any life, any people around it. But in other games, such as the Assassin's Creed games, you walk throughout vibrant and bustling cities filled with people, and there the problem is even greater because the developers have to find more stuff for you to do. They have to improve your interactions with other people. They have to do more to um, make you to fool you uh, into thinking that this is a world that is operating regardless of what you're doing, that there is a world in the game that goes on. All these um, NPCs are going on about their lives regardless of your actions. And indeed, some of these characters, and also in um, previous games like Skyrim, for example, or even earlier games of the Elder Scroll series, the developers had gone into had done considerable work scripting procedural code governing the actions of those NPC characters, of those NPCs, and giving them a semblance of artificial life and a routine that they would go about. Um, um, and it would seem that they would have some rudimentary, independence. Um, but ultimately, the success of an open world game um, and it depends on um, how desirable it would be for you to go back and revisit this game even after you have beaten the main quest, the main storyline. For example, I want to go back to Red Dead Redemption that I have played a couple of years ago. No, I think it's more than that. I think it's three years ago on PS3. Um, I'd like to go back and actually um, restart the game and replay the missions, because each mission is a self-contained story. Well, not all of them, but there are many self-contained stories that are original and very fun to play, and even the side quests are original and contribute to fleshing out this Wild West world. And this is more, in absolute terms, for me as a gamer, this is more successful than a lot of modern games with much more content and much more uh, expanse, and even if you compare a game like Red Dead Redemption with Mad Max, for example, you would realize that uh, Mad Max really um, is severely um, handicapped because it's filled with so much repetitive actions. Um, even so that even if the developers have gone into trouble of making each outpost different from the other, in the end, the trouble is in terms of if you can find a hidden path or a ladder, or there's a slightly different layout, or some outposts are creatively constructed around a husk of an aeroplane or a bridge, or a twin installation of twin towers, like an industrial complex. Uh, but this is artificial. It feels like they are different, but the way you approach them, the way you take out the perimeter defenses, especially if you boost your car, which is a moving lethal machine. You can boost the harpoon and the sniper rifle, and what's it called, the sort of missiles you can, and it's like an RPG, that you can launch. It becomes very, very easy. The hand-to-hand combat becomes very easy. You have knives at your disposal. You have a pump action shotgun. You can boost your character, and you can take out the most. And the bosses. Although I don't know what's going to happen in the later on in the story. I mean, all the bosses are identical. The only thing that is different is their colors, or the skin of their clothes. You just unlock the colors of the different factions. And so, and that's a very stark contrast in when you remember, for example, um, I remember, what was it? Um, a similar game, Rage from ID Software, the shooting game, which again had to do with a post-apocalyptic world. You know, the artificial intelligence, the movement of the enemies was much more. In Mad Max, the enemies attack you like they're mindless drones. They don't use evasive maneuvers. They are dumb as fuck. Um, in in Rage, on the other hand, uh, your opponents are agile. You have to use different tactics, and you have to approach each opponent in a different way, and to use some kind of strategy in order to, if you want to win, if you want to kill them. Okay. um, and of course there are some other variants of enemies in Mad Max. For example, there are some guys that there are some midgets that have this jump attack. Others that they have this, they activate explosives and blow up. We have some guys that they are armored and they have shields. But if you unlock some perks in your character, you can bash the shields off, and it's just punch, 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 parry, punch, 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 parry, punch. It's the same sequence. It's essentially button mashing fest. So yeah, there is that. But ultimately, it is satisfying. But the proportion of all this content and all this, this huge world, compared to what it gives to you back, I think it's a small proportion. They could have made the same impact with far less content if they made the world and made the experience tighter, and if they didn't have to incorporate so much fluff and repetitive actions. On the other hand, uh, you could say that liberating all those territories and taking down all these enemy outposts, well, that's part of the charm of the game, and I agree. That's why I keep playing Mad Max and all these games. although the core mechanic and the whole idea of the game is very similar to other games. You know, what do? You take out enemy outposts. Okay, you do this in Far Cry. You do this in you take out perimetric defenses. You invade you or by stealth. You first you unlock the map. You pinpoint the locations by in Far Cry by going to radio towers, climbing radio towers. In Mad Max by going up in air balloons. In Assassin's Creed, the same exact recipe. You go to high places. You go on top of cathedrals and uh, high places, and you activate your igloo vision, so you can um, locate on the map and unlock points of interest. Okay, it's exactly the same thing. The game is essentially a vast map of a million things you can do. I mean, it's a GPS game. You go from place to place. This is the game. So in a fashion, it's open world. You can approach the game um, uh, however you want, but on another, but at the same time, it is linear if you decide to approach the game head on and concentrate on the main storyline. You can have either experience depending on your preferences and the time you want to invest on the game. So and yeah, take for instance another kind of game, a more restrictive game. I'm playing the game called Remember Me. I think it's by a French developer. Remember Me has a female protagonist. I know Dean doesn't like female protagonist, but she's a hot piece of ass. I mean, even if you just want to indulge your senses checking out her derriere as you're playing the game, I think it's worth uh, the price of admission of getting and playing this game. But besides that, seriously now, Remember Me is a game, very linear, very focused game that in which you have absolutely no freedom of fooling around and moving around. It's not. It's a very restrictive game. In that sense, it's an old school game. There is a specific path. There are invisible walls. You cannot climb. You cannot walk into whatever place you want to. And the focus is on unlocking the levels, continuing the story, and it's a very interesting and artistically, it's a very atmospheric, very immersive cyberpunk futuristic dystopian universe. It feels very much like the world of Blade Runner. It's at the same time a setting of a very uh, technologically advanced future, and at the same time a really depressing vision of a world where the authority of um, really dark agencies that operate beyond any government and any law is making the world a really dangerous and depressing place to be. So, and it's also very creative in the main concepts of the game. For example, you play the role of the main character is a young woman who has the ability to enter people's minds and alter their past. She witnesses their memories and she can play back sequences of their past memories and change key moments of these memories so that they can make them remember their past events in a different way. For example, um, she goes to a man who is who has been abandoned by his wife, and she hijacks his brain and makes he alters his memories in a way that this man uh, remembers that he has actually killed his wife. So it opens your mind to new ideas about how the world operates, and essentially hacking your mind. We all know that now our brains are nothing more than biological computers, and the aspect and the notion of building machines and systems that can actually hack our brains as if they were merely computers is fascinating and at the same time very chilling. And so they are building machines that someday will actually visualize your dreams. And this is a horrifying prospect, that someday you can have machines that will wirelessly and without your permission will tap in to your brain and read your thoughts and visualize your dreams. You will never be free. You will never have at least this your last solitude, your last fortress of solitude, which is your own mind, which is the ultimate safe space you have. Even if you are imprisoned, even if you are deprived of any other freedoms you have, at least you can have the freedom of your own mind. But imagine a world when even that is not safe anymore, even if there is a back door uh, for the government or for every other nefarious individual or organization to tap into your brain as if it were a computer system to hack into. So yeah, it's crazy, man. It's really, really crazy, how many of these games, the all of the art and the narrative, the quality of the narrative and the vision that the developers and the artists and the storytellers, the countless hours of work that they put into those games. Of course, ultimately, the games are just entertainment. Okay, we play them to pass a few hours pleasantly, but I don't think we would be fair to dismiss them so easily, especially open world games, even games with not so much freedom of movement, but with tighter and more linear storytelling paths. And yeah, you can get lost into the world of games. And I think the more balanced thing to do is to appreciate uh, the beauty and the labor that has been put into these games, and the hard work, to appreciate the hard work that people have put into these games. Um, and not just to rush through every game, just to sit for a moment, to take a look at what each individual game has to offer. You know, to take in all this atmosphere, and what does the storyteller try to tell you about this world? What is maybe an underlying message, okay, about the world they are trying to depict, if there is a one, because some games are just uh, are just though the world is just a setting for you to go and murder people and just to have a wild ride, okay, because of course sometimes we don't want to overanalyze things and to get uh, too invested thinking about things that there are not actually there. So, yeah, well, man, you can get lost talking about and thinking about those things, um, because there are so many games, so many different stories. Uh, one could a person could talk for hours and hours about these games, and it's so exciting, discussing about these matters, and seeing and hearing other people laying out their own opinions about these things. And so yes, I have to stop this because I could be talking for hours. So enjoy your games, your own games. Just think about them. Don't rush through them. Savor the experience. Enjoy them. Just think for a moment about them, about the story, about what the storytellers try to tell you, and enjoy your experiences. Okay, bye.